Most people aren't familiar with what actual control is.
And banks can change the rules. And we're talking about real families here. They're out there, they're working hard, they're providing, helping their kids through all those things in life that they're going to need, money for. The absence of control just amplifies stress.
Unless you look backward, this has happened before, this is probably most likely going to happen again. So how do I establish and set myself up so that this doesn't affect me or my family as we move forward throughout life? Reclaiming that banking function in your life, taking over control of that, is going to set the stage for future success.
These types of conversations, once you get through the initial icebreakers of money, the subject of money, it's a little bit taboo. Once you break that ice and you get past it, there is an amazing horizon out there.
The cavalry has arrived.
One of the things that got me thinking today was, because this week, a lot of conversation, particularly with people who are exploring the concept, are really focusing in on control. I think that we're really doing a great job in the information that we're getting out there in the marketplace, and just clarifying that first and foremost, obviously IBC is a process, but the illusion that people have in terms of access to money. Well, I have great credit, so when I need access to money, I'll just go to someone else's bank, and then only to find out that either the rules have changed, the guardrails have shifted in terms of what requirements a person needs to have in order to get access to money. Whereas when you think of the illusion of access to capital versus control of capital, right? Like who really gives the orders? Think about your experience. Like, would you hand the ammo over to the enemy and then say, "Hey, do you mind if I borrow some of that back?"
I'm sure that would work out well.
Yeah, that would be a really bad day at
fine.
the office. But what are your thoughts around that?
I believe that most people aren't familiar with what actual control is.
Yeah. Well, here, let me share this story talking about what you can control. So back in, this would have been 2007, early 2008. And at that time, the financial crisis was on the horizon. Things, dominoes were starting to tip over. And my wife, Rebecca, and I, we lived and worked in the United States. And we had a first position home equity line of credit. And we had purchased a property and obviously resided there. And I get a phone call from the lender out of the blue, completely unexpected. And the lender says, "Just wanted to give you a courtesy heads up. Your home equity line of credit has been converted into a principal and interest mortgage, effective immediately. This is the rate. This is your payment." Now, the control that we thought we had as it related to that home equity line of credit evaporated. And I was very active in real estate investment at that time. So I was relying upon the illusion of ready access to capital. And it was taken away from me in an instant. That derails your plans in a real hurry. And not to mention raises your blood pressure. And so when a person has what I say now, and I like to do this with Ash because A, he's a great guy, and B, he's, provided, dedicated plenty of years of service to our country, which we're very grateful for. But when you have what I refer to now as the command center for your capital, you've got a dividend paying whole life insurance contract, or ideally a system of contracts, and you've got that cash value accumulation, which can't go backward, which is literally piling up daily. You're paying no tax on the buildup. Nobody from the life insurance company is ever contacting you, me, or anybody to have the same conversation that the lender had with me about the home equity line of credit, because the insurance company administers those contracts. The insurance company does not own them. And you and I both know who calls the shots in a scenario: the owner. And so that example came up for me in my thinking prior to you and I chatting this morning, because it's this illusion that people have, and banks can change the rules, and that can put people in a real precarious position financially.
And the point that I was getting at with the physical fitness and, being able to only control usually things within that immediate circle that you exist in, and physical fitness being one of them. When it comes to control, we talk about the same thing for the infinite banking concept. Is that right there is something that you can actually control. It's in a contract.
Yeah.
And once again, reclaiming that banking function in your life, taking over control of that is going to set the stage for future success.
100%.
But if you don't make the first steps, then you're just going to keep going in circles to that around that illusion of control where you believe that you're the one actually calling the shots. Well, unless you have the gold, you're not the one calling the shots.
100%. And if you view that policy or that system of policies as Nelson referred to it as the best tool to get the job done. In the context of this discussion that you and I are having, thinking of those contracts as financial weaponry. Your cash value is liquidity. You and I know that all too well. The guaranteed death benefit, which is essentially guaranteed reinforcements of money, and the loan provision, where you can be very intentional, you can be very tactical in terms of how you deploy capital for whatever it is that you want to control how you finance. And if you think of a visual in your mind, like you've got this growing pool of cash value, which is like your fuel depot. And then you've got all that death benefit in the policies, which is like your air cover, and your premiums, which is your investment in what you can control. And that, for me, there's the peace of mind that comes with being able to either take advantage of a high caliber opportunity or just purely just control something that you control how you finance something that you need, a new car, an investment opportunity, a business expense, a home renovation, new appliances. Think of all those things that people readily finance. When you're controlling how you finance, it creates this just this sense of calmness and peace. It's like, I'm in total control here, and I don't have to worry about getting a phone call like what Jayson got from a lender back in early 2008. You just don't have to worry about that. And we're talking about real families here, Ash. They're out there, they're working hard, they're providing, they're helping their kids through all those things in life that they're going to need money for. And the absence of control just amplifies stress. And so when they catch the concept, which, as the late R. Nelson Nash often said, infinite banking is more caught than it is taught. And when you catch it, you cannot unsee it. Isn't that good?
Absolutely. And, never in my experience have I gone to a traditional lender or a commercial or traditional bank. Have I walked in there, requested a loan, and have only ever been asked two questions. Do you want it by direct deposit or do you want it by check? It has never been my experience in life when it comes to traditional loans.
Yeah, you're jumping through the lengthy, nosy credit applications and having to provide personal guarantees if you're a business owner. It's not an experience, especially anyone that I've talked to that has had to do it, more than once. It's not an experience that people would rave about. They would rather just get it over with, versus when you co-own the lender, in this case, the life insurance company, you're excited when you initiate a policy loan because you know that very behavior in and of itself is a direct contributor to the net earnings of the company that you co-own. And so if you know that is a direct net contributor to the earnings of that business, you've got to finance the thing that you're wanting to get anyway. You co-own the lender. You control the repayment schedule of a policy loan completely. What a peaceful, stress-free way of life it becomes. And I'm personally living proof of that. I'm going into my 18th year in my journey. And I didn't see the infinite banking concept on day one the way that I see it today. Obviously, just given the time that has elapsed and the degree at which we've implemented this within our family. and how we've coached our clients to implement it as well within their families. When Nelson told me in 2012, look, it's going to take the average person 20 years to control 100% of the banking function in their lives as it relates to their needs. I thought back then that that was an eternity. And he said, the time's going to go by anyhow. And here we are. I'm entering my 18th year, and it's like the time flew by. So,
well, dare I say, how you looked at it at the beginning and how you look at it now, dare I say that sounds almost infinite?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you ever get an opportunity, and maybe you've heard Nelson describe why he named it the infinite banking concept, and he breaks it down so eloquently. And the Institute might have this posted on the Nelson Ash Institute YouTube channel if people want to zoom over there and take a look at it. But Nelson just had this brilliant way of explaining why he named it the infinite banking concept. It is impossible to assign boundaries to infinite. It's limited to the extent of your imagination in how you implement this process in your family and in your business. And I was speaking with Lisa Campbell from Profit First. We're going to be collaborating with Profit First. And she said, we're redirecting our marketing efforts to focus on entrepreneurs. We want to focus that energy and support to the entrepreneur community. And she has been implementing this process for the past few years. And she made a remark in our conversation yesterday that is not uncommon. I wish I would have known about this, insert X number of years ago. And in her case, it was 10. And I said, well, Lisa, you can't say that 10 years from now. And she loves it. Like she said, my God, it's so simple. And I didn't realize that I could implement this process so simply. And she wants now to have her Profit First consultants, people who are helping these entrepreneurs, to develop a deep understanding of this concept so that they can help these entrepreneurs by actually helping them. And what better way to do that than to marry up a Profit First model with being in a position of total and absolute control as it relates to ready access to capital? What do entrepreneurs need? Capital. And when they get the capital, if they're in a position of total control, then they can focus their energy on deploying that capital into whatever it is that they're trying to do to grow their company and to create more value for the marketplace. It's brilliant.
Well, there's certain organizations that don't understand when it comes to entrepreneurship. Just hand them the capital and get out of the way. But they don't. That doesn't hit home, right? And when you were talking earlier about, we were just talking about control. I just, I like to talk to, people that are going to be potential clients about, when I ask them like, what does control mean to you, in regards to finance? Because most people have, to an extent, an experience of at least going to a bank and maybe applying for a mortgage or a vehicle or something along those lines. And you just need to take them back to that experience. Just think about how that was, because, you just think about how many, the hoops you have to jump through. Not only are they painful, they're invasive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's like, remember that feeling? Okay. Do you want to feel that again?
Hopefully not.
I haven't come across a yes yet.
Yeah, that would be a complimentary psychiatric evaluation.
Yeah, exactly. When you were saying the financial, issue during 2008, 2009, we obviously were hit by that, but I actually missed the whole thing. I was deployed overseas at the time.
Okay.
And every once in a while, we would see a TV and I'd see like a clip, and they were talking about it and the economy and how bad things were going. And I remember one time I was sitting at a forward operating base in a mess tent. There's just this tent that's set up where you can get a meal, and they happened to have a TV. And I looked over and they were talking about it. And I looked at the table with all my teammates and I was like, "You guys have any idea what they're talking about?" And they're like, "No, we have no idea what they're talking about." And I'm like, "Man, that sounds bad." But we weren't focused on that because we had, no idea what was going on because we had other mission priorities. But it was just, then I cracked a joke. I was like, "Well, if things are getting real bad and people are looking for jobs, I know an organization that's always hiring." However, people may not want to show up.
Right. Yeah. The workplace hazards are
Yeah, as we're sitting in the middle of the desert somewhere, and it's just
Right.
like looking around, like, okay, well, all right. It's just, yeah, I feel the pain of that time frame, but it's just, it was more so afterwards, because during the time it was like a blur, just went by. I mean, it was many, many, many months, but it went by, and I was just like, yeah, I guess there was a financial crisis.
Yeah, well, for people who, gosh, you think back to, I had plenty of conversations with people whose retirement accounts were practically vaporized, and obviously the real estate market, just absolutely being decimated. And when we just think, okay, what can we control? So we open the discussion with focusing on that, focusing on what you can control. You can control to the degree, the extent that you desire, where your money resides. And it has to reside somewhere. And the way of the world in how people are, their financial posture, and they earn income and it flows onto the books of someone else's bank. And then they're through debit transactions and online banking, they're systematically transferring that money away. Every dollar that passes through the books of a commercial bank becomes someone else's working capital. It's just the truth. And so if you have as many dollars as you desire flowing through the books of the life insurance company that you co-own, that capital, that working capital, gets deployed for the benefit of everyone who owns the life insurance company. If you are a stockholder of a commercial bank, your motive is to participate in the profitability and the long range owner equity of that institution. You want that institution to have a very clear motive: be profitable and grow the enterprise value, because my ownership interest becomes more valuable if you check the boxes on both of those things. The life insurance company, their mandate is very simple. They can only be responsive to the owners of the company. And in this case, with a mutual company, we're not dealing with stockholders. There's no quarterly pressure on the insurance company to deploy capital in a way that either perhaps introduces a little bit of additional risk that maybe the company might not have taken. There's no pressure there. We're dealing in theoretical 100-year lifespans, not 90-day sprints. Big, big, big difference in terms of correlating that to Nelson's first golden rule, which is to think long range. And when you are a stockholder of a commercial bank, the value of your stock fluctuates based upon whatever the market believes that institution's value is. When you co-own the life insurance company, that is a contractual relationship, not a speculation relationship. Big difference between the two. Your policy's value cannot go backward. Your ownership interest in that business cannot lose value. Your money must reside somewhere. What better place to have it reside than here? Isn't that good?
It's fantastic. And people, as they go through life, their life experiences are going to dictate how they respond to things. Their failures are going to dictate how they pivot and adjust. And unfortunately, as we go through different generations have different life experiences, and they've seen the economy, they've seen the financial sector affect them differently, whether it was their parents, their grandparents, and so on. So, it's the same as the Jays right now. It's like I saw, the majority of the players in the Blue Jays weren't even born, during the last World Series in '93 when they won.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I was watching, a lot of the clips from game 4, 5, 6, and they were interviewing people in Toronto watching the game. And I was like, yeah, a lot of these people weren't even around them. So unless you look backwards or you actually pay attention to history, then it's not really in your focus. It's not in your sights to be like, this has happened before. This is probably most likely going to happen again. So how do I establish and set myself up so that I'm the one in control, so that this doesn't affect me or my family as we move forward throughout life?
Really good point. And again, reflecting back, if I had ready access capital during that last financial crisis, opportunities were abundant in terms of distressed property, distressed businesses. Opportunities abound, but lenders weren't lending. The credit cycle practically came to a grinding halt. The life insurance companies, on the other hand, the policy loan activity grew because people turned to that ready supply source to take advantage of opportunities, and they were in a position of total control. And I had no idea that this process even existed at that time until July of '08. And even then, when I was first exposed to the process, I had already had a story written financially, right? Up to that point in my lifetime, I was 32 years young. So I already had a story ingrained in my mind. Here's how you posture yourself financially. You put money into tax qualified plans, so you maximize that so you can get a deferral. You invest in real estate. You put money to work in the stock market. That was the story that I had ingrained in my mind because mainstream media, mainstream financial gurus, that's all that everyone was talking about. Nobody was on CNBC saying, let's talk about the difference between access to credit versus controlling capital. Those interviews and conversations weren't happening. If they were, I would have heard it. And so when I got first exposed to this process, I had to begin rewiring. I had to begin rewriting that story. And once I rewrote it, I've never looked back. I've just never looked back. I don't look at money the same way. I don't look at where it resides the same way. The feeling of just not having to worry about dealing with a banker unless I choose to deal with a banker. Wow, what a feeling that is, Ash. I'm telling you, it's peaceful.
That sounds like control to me.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between knowing something and practicing something, and you can only speak to something so well if you know it. But if you practice what you preach, you're going to be able to answer all the questions.
Oh, definitely.
Because you're living it, and that's where, when it comes to, family, and you always talk about, family values, those generational family values. If kids and family members and loved ones, if they see you leading in that manner, then whether they choose to follow or not, they're still going to ask the question, what's going on over there? What are you doing that I don't know about? Yeah. And you've had firsthand experience of that. And, unfortunately, it takes some people more time than others to see and recognize. And you wish that everyone would just catch on and start doing it tomorrow. But as people that are in a coaching and mentor type of position like we are, sometimes it takes time. And time can be the enemy, but when they eventually come around, that's the only success that I'm looking for.
Oh, I agree with you. And it's, I think about Nelson anytime I hear things like that, because he would always remind us that if we're going to guide someone and we're going to refer to ourselves as coaching someone, then we have to help that person to think about their thinking, not Nelson's, not mine, not yours, but their own thinking. And that is, I guess, one of many things that I truly believe makes us undeniably unique, because we are teaching, not telling. And when a person, and you've already witnessed this firsthand, and you will many more times over your journey, when a person catches it and you know that they've really taken the time to think about their thinking, and they can outline to you in a very clear, articulate manner the problem and the solution to that problem as it relates to their needs, not some generic basket of here's what the infinite banking concept solves for, but as it relates to their own needs. Oh man, that is so incredibly fulfilling. And then you're not just a guide or a coach anymore. You're somebody who gets to kind of walk alongside them in that journey and see how they're growing through it, and how more money is flowing back to the family, and how that's making the family feel. And when they go and take control of how they finance something, and they reach out to you and they send you a picture of that car, and they send you a picture of, those appliances or the holiday that their family went on, and they're expressing gratitude to you for putting them in a position of total and absolute control. And my response is always the same. Credit to Nelson. It takes two to tango. You have to have a willing student in order for the teacher to be able to effectively teach. And so that's just one of many things that I just love about what we do. This isn't work to me. It just isn't.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that last point, because There's a difference between building policies and building relationships
Hit the nail right on the head.
in the relationship game.
100%, 100%. And we share with people optimum mindsets of the people that we most love to serve. And we're really intentional about that, because if it doesn't resonate with a person that you're speaking with, so if I mentioned to you, Ash, we love to serve those who are respectful, responsible, kind, well-grounded in their family values, coachable, make decisions based on fact, not opinion, and recognize that controlling the banking function is one of the most important financial things that they can do over their lifetime. If a person didn't resonate with one or more of those optimum mindsets, they're going to let you know. Jayson, I'm with you, but I can't stand my family and they can't stand me. Well, I'm not going to be well suited personally to serve you, because that's out of alignment for me. And we get to do the buying in the relationship game. We're the buyer, not the seller. And so I can't think of the last time where I've had to, reject a prospective client because they didn't possess one or more of the optimum mindsets. We're very intentional around how we market around that, because we want to intentionally repel people who don't possess those optimum mindsets. And it's not a slant on those people. It's just they're not the right fit for us. And people who do gravitate toward those mindsets and those values, there's very little ice to break. You're getting to clarity on a concept. You're helping them develop a deeper understanding of the problem, so the solution actually matters to them. But there's no ice to break on the relationship element. The technical aspects of IBC, the attributes of a dividend-paying whole life policy have nothing to do with building, maintaining, nurturing, growing a relationship. The optimum mindset piece, if you've got those boxes checked off, you're off to a great start, because there's very little ice to break values-wise.
Yeah, I definitely agree. If you're clear in your mission and those values are clear, then you realize that it also, when you start working with people, sometimes it's not just about solving and helping their financial landscape, but it's also about helping fix the person.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that individual has been told the same thing over and over and over again, to their detriment, not to their benefits, and not by people that were looking out for their best interest.
Right.
And they need to recognize that. Not everyone that comes to us at first sees that.
Right.
That's why those conversations we have with them, through getting them through clarity, through questions, is so important, because they may be looking at it from, okay, I want to just improve my finances, which is one of the goals as well. However, understanding that the current structure of the way things are set up is not for their benefit.
Right.
And if they don't start to control that function, then they're going to keep going down the same road of being taken advantage of.
Very true. And when somebody wants financial control, if we, look at it that way, they want more control of their money. And, we've heard so many different variations of how people express that, right? I want more control of my money. I want more financial control in my life. Well, we dig deeper, because if you put someone in a position where they have control financially over their life, well, what specifically about that is important to you? And a person, well, I'll feel more secure. Okay, so let's put you in a place where you're feeling more secure. What specifically about feeling more secure is important to you? And you start to literally climb this staircase until you get to clarity on what exactly is most important to that person that you're going to be guiding and coaching. Because I want more financial control, or I want more control of my money. We're not even dipping our toe in the pool, let alone going to the depth that we need to go to really truly understand, like, what exactly is it that you value the most? Because that we can definitely help you with, provided it's in alignment with the optimum mindsets of the people that we most love to serve. And when you get to that clarity, what most often happens is the person responds to you by saying something to the effect of, nobody's had this depth of conversation with me before. And now I realize what's really most important, what I truly value the most. The control financially, the control of the money was only one domino of 15 that got me to exactly what I truly value the most. And now that story begins to be rewritten. They're seeing the outcome, the desired outcome, from a completely different perspective. It's not just numbers. It's not just a bank account that has a specified amount of money in it. It's much, much, much deeper than that. And when you're dealing with a family, there is so much more depth, money is a utility within the family, but it can also be a pretty big detonator of problems within the family. And so we've got to get, and that's part of what we do, is just getting to the root of what exactly is it that you truly value the most, and how can the implementation of this concept help you begin to rewrite that story that's been ingrained in your mind about how you've done things financially up to this point in your lifetime, so that you can not only create your desired outcome, but that you really have clarity on what that desired outcome actually is. And rarely is it an amount of money. It's all the aspects of a peaceful, stress-free way of life financially, and what that means to you and your family, and what the utility of money equips you to do, to create memories, to spend more quality time, to have more freedom of time and purpose with your family. All those things that nobody else is talking about. They're just, everybody's arm wrestling out there in the marketplace about where your money should reside. Put it in a 401k. No, put it over here in a non-registered mutual fund. No, put it over here in this particular stock. No, put it over here in this alternative investment. Anybody want to talk about Bitcoin? No, put it over here. Like, that's the noise in the marketplace. And we just take the bulldozer out and say, let's just move all that over. There we go. Now we've got that out of the way. Let's have a conversation and get to what it is that you truly value. Isn't that good?
Yeah, I find that a lot of people, they're addressing a product. Like you just mentioned, like put your money here in a mutual fund, put it over here in the stock market, whatever that looks like. But the important thing is addressing the people that you're talking to. That's what matters, not the product.
Amen. Amen to that.
And a lot of times when we talk to, prospects, they will say, well, I'm confused about infinite banking. I don't understand. How do I become my own banker? And all these questions are coming because, unless you understand the problem, right, the solution just isn't going to matter. But when they first come on, it's like learning anything new. You have to rethink your thinking. But they think that's the complicated bit. That's not the complicated bit. The individual and the family, that's where the complication is. Because that's what takes real time to affect change.
Yes.
And, once again, going back to those generational family values, we always talk about the family banking system and how beneficial that can be to your legacy for generations. However, the people in the family banking system, they need to be on board.
100%.
So which conversation do you think is more important?
Can I bring this up, Ash? Because I kept it as a note on my phone. The first time that I had expressed this, and I had shared this in, I can't remember the podcast that I was on, and that conversation around, the family banking system and all of that great stuff had come up. And it always gets to a remark of, and then you get to transfer generational wealth. Anybody who's watching or listening, how often have you heard that? Those two words combined. They're thrown around so loosely, it's not even funny. Mm-hmm. And what I had shared in that interview was, well, let me tell you what's tough to transfer. It's really easy to transfer a permanent death benefit when death comes and the death benefit is paid to the named beneficiaries. That is a remarkably simple transfer of wealth. Here's what's tough to transfer: generational ambition, generational drive, generational values and principles, generational work ethic, generational gratitude, generational faith, generational commitment to family. If all that gets transferred is the money, you're going to ruin your children's future if that's all that gets transferred. And this is due to parents who've worked extremely hard and they've set a great example and they've really, really done well, inadvertently not knowing that they could be potentially planting some pretty damaging landmines when money transfers to the next generation, when wealth transfers to the next generation versus the wealth mentality. And that takes work. And that's where we come in as guides and coaches to be able to help a family see that and then think about their thinking and then be available to help guide that discussion that happens within a family. And what do kids need? They need the ambition, that fire, that, I'm going to go and pursue what it is I want to achieve and the value I want to create. But if all they get left with is a U-Haul full of money, it drains the ambition. It drains the perseverance. It drains the fire and the drive. And I never want to see that for my kids. My kids, in the way of an inheritance, is capped. It is capped at a number that is going to it's going to be like giving them a nice push in the right direction. And that's about it. And it's not a bad thing. That, to me, my belief is that's the best thing for them. And so some of these families that we work with, they're amassing massive death benefit, and they've insured the lives of their kids and their grandkids. There's going to be a cascading effect of money. Just recognize that without all the other generational items that are tough to transfer, you could be setting your family up for a lot of turmoil. Money solves a lot of problems and creates a lot of problems. It depends on the origination of the money.
That's that U-Haul truck you were talking about. Was that the one that had the name Vanderbilt on the side of it?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And that, that's a great list because, don't forget perseverance.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But my personal favorite, you can add this to the list: intestinal fortitude.
Ah, okay. I'm going to add it. I'm adding it right now. I am not kidding. I am adding it right now. One thing that I had mentioned, Ash, to a family that I'm blessed to serve, and I'm not personally, I don't take on new clients anymore, but a family that I'm blessed to serve. And I said, it's this component of what you and I are talking about right now is not something that you can just wing it. You have to be very intentional. And you've heard that repetition is our best teacher. So it's not meant to be achieved through the device of a single family meeting. Okay, now that we all understand, we're good. No, everybody is learning and growing together. There's no such thing as having arrived in knowledge. These types of conversations, once you get through the initial icebreakers of, money, the subject of money, it's a little bit taboo. People don't really want to open up about it. Once you break that ice and you get past it, there is an amazing horizon out there. And it's that, all those things that I mentioned, getting to the generational perseverance, generational family values, then when you transfer wealth, it's like throwing a backpack of money on to all these great values and a very strong, tight-knit family versus dumping a pile of money out in the center and saying, have at it, everybody. Oh, kids, you had those dreams of wanting to, work as hard as it's going to take to, Jackson, you want to become a Navy SEAL, and you recognize that you're going to have to go through probably some of the worst experience of your life to get there. And now a big pile of money gets dropped in the center, and he goes, I don't want to do that anymore. I got all this money. Ambition, get out of here. I don't need you anymore. Perseverance, you're not needed anymore. I'm never going to have a bad financial day for the rest of my life. What do I need ambition and perseverance for? Family values? Who cares? I've got all the money I need. That'll never happen in my family. And any family that I'm blessed to serve, I am making every effort to communicate the same framework so that they can see it from, I want to leave something behind. That's great. That's a wonderful intention. But if the word wealth comes up, let's accompany it with mentality so that we set the future generation up for success, and we provide maybe a little something to help them along, and we do some really great things for the rest of the capital that's left over. Bless other people's lives in a positive way. Have a big impact in the community where you live and work. All those other things that bring the surviving family a high degree of fulfillment and tax breaks.
Yeah, let's not forget the real thief of of wealth. And that's why Jocko says discipline equals freedom.
Yeah.
Right? Because motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going.
Good point. Very good point. Yeah, I was blessed to see Jocko speak at, he was doing a Keep conference, and he did an amazing talk. I still have all the notes from that talk. We should actually remind each other to bring that up. I got to locate those notes because there were a lot of good teaching moments in that talk that just really resonated. He's one heck of a guy, and somebody you would definitely want alongside you if you had to take the hill, so to speak. Ash, this was fun as always. Another edition of what Ash and I have named the command post. And when folks see this on the YouTubes, there'll be another video that pops up. That's just Ash and my way of saying, continue your journey of learning, and YouTube's algorithm serving up a video that it thinks you should watch. So have an outstanding rest of your day. And thanks for joining us again. This was a lot of fun.